Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm NILE and these are the headlines. In Pakistan, security forces have killed 8 terrorists, including 3 commanders, during intelligence-based operations in North Waziristan. In a statement, the military's media wing said the terrorists were involved in the attacks on security forces and incidents of target killing. A huge cache of arms was recovered from their hideouts. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has pledged to root out corruption and control inflation after winning a vote of confidence from the parliament. Addressing the National Assembly, Khan said Pakistan is on its way to economic recovery. He secured 178 votes against 171 required to win the trust of the parliament. In Doha, U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad and Taliban leader Abdul Ghani Baradar held discussions as they look for ways to speed up the Afghan peace process. A spokesman for the Taliban said the two sides expressed their commitments to the Doha agreement at the Friday meeting. Earlier, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said he is ready to discuss holding fresh elections to advance the talks with the Taliban. Pope Francis has appealed for peaceful coexistence in a meeting with Iraq's top Shiite cleric Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. This was the first meeting between the two religious leaders in the holy southern city of Najaf. Francis also visited the ruins of ancient Ur in southern Iraq, revered as the birthplace of Prophet Ibrahim. In Yemen, fighting between pro-government forces and Houthi rebels has killed at least 90 combatants in Marib in the last 24 hours. According to media reports, 32 personnel of the government forces and 58 rebels were among those killed. Houthi rebels launched an offensive last month to seize Marib. Brazil has recorded 1,800 more coronavirus-related deaths in the last 24 hours. The country's death toll has crossed 262,000 with more than 10.8 million infections. Here in Pakistan, the virus has claimed 38 more lives and infected over 1,700 people overnight. Nationwide, the death toll has risen to 13,166 with more than 588,000 cases. Globally, there are 2.57 million fatalities and 116 million infections. And in cricket, India beat England in the 4th and final test in Ahmedabad by an innings and 25 runs to seal the series 3-1. Needing 160 runs to make India bat again, England were bowled out for 135. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. In Pakistan, security forces have killed 8 terrorists during intelligence-based operations in North Waziristan. In a statement, the military's media wing said 3 militant commanders were among those killed. It added that the terrorists were involved in attacks on security forces and incidents of target killing. A huge cache of arms was recovered from their hideouts. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has pledged to root out corruption and control inflation after winning a vote of confidence from the parliament. He secured 178 votes against 171 required to win the trust of the parliament. Addressing the National Assembly, Khan said Pakistan is on its way to economic recovery. He thanked his allies for reposing confidence in him. The vote of confidence was sought after the ruling party lost a key seat to the joint opposition in the Senate elections held earlier this week. In Doha, U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad and Taliban leader Abdul Ghani Baradar held discussions as they look for ways to speed up the Afghan peace process. A spokesman for the Taliban said the two sides expressed their commitment to the Doha agreement at the Friday meeting. Earlier, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said he is ready to discuss holding fresh elections to advance the talks with the Taliban. U.S. President Joe Biden is in the midst of reviewing his strategy for Afghanistan, including an agreement reached with the Taliban last year. However, violence across Afghanistan has escalated even as the Taliban and Kabul are holding peace talks in Qatar. The chairman of the Hurriyat Forum, Mirwais Omar Farouk, says Indian actions in occupied Kashmir cannot change the ground realities. Farouk, who is under detention, said New Delhi will have to settle the Kashmir dispute sooner or later. In an online interview in Srinagar, Farouk said people's aspirations cannot be suppressed through the use of force. He said that he has been under house arrest for the past 19 months. Meanwhile, occupation troops launched a cordon and search operation in South Kashmir's Shopian district. They also began a door-to-door search operation, terrorizing the civilians. As the Indian farmers' protest against the controversial farm laws completes 100 days, the opposition party, Congress, describes the period as 100 days of ruling BJP's arrogance. In a tweet, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi says the phase is a black chapter in India's history for the treatment meted out to the farmers. Earlier, farmers blocked an expressway outside New Delhi to pile more pressure on the government. At least 248 farmers have died since 26 November during protests at the capital's borders. Their movement has gained international support, including from such celebrities as climate change activist Greta Thunberg and U.S. singer Rihanna. Pope Francis has appealed for peaceful coexistence in a meeting with Iraq's top Shiite cleric, Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. The meeting, held in the holy city of Najaf, is the first between the two leaders. Later, Francis headed to the ruins of ancient Ur in southern Iraq, revered as the birthplace of Prophet Ibrahim. This is his riskiest foreign trip amid the tightest security ever seen for a papal visit in Iraq. In Yemen, at least 90 combatants have been killed after clashes between government forces and Houthi rebels vying to seize Marib. The rebels launched an offensive last month to control the strategic oil-rich governorate. The clashes have left 32 dead among government soldiers, while 58 Houthis have been killed in the air coalition strikes. Military officials say the heavy clashes broke out on 6 fronts as government forces managed to repel the Houthis. The fighting has raised fears for the thousands of displaced civilians sheltering in camps in the surrounding desert. Earlier this week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged the rebels to halt their offensive in Marib. Iran has warned Israel against consequences as a result of any possible miscalculation. In a letter to the UN Secretary General, Iran's envoy Majid Ravanchi rejected allegations of attacking Israeli ship on the Sea of Oman. Ravanchi said the incident is a false flag operation to pursue malign policies, advance legitimate goals. This comes after the Israeli defense minister threatened to strike Iranian targets. Benny Gantz also showed a map of Iranian installments in Lebanon that he said Israel could target. The development coincides with the hopes of informal nuclear talks between the United States and Iran. Libya's Prime Minister-designate Abdulhamid Bidihi has proposed a unity government of 27 members. His office says the government lineup will be debated by the Tobruk-based House of Representatives on Monday. In a statement, Bidihi's office said unifying the state's institution remains a priority for the government. It added that improving services and ending the transitional period by holding elections is also high on agenda. In February, Bidihi was selected in a UN-sponsored inter-Libyan dialogue. Under the plan, he has until the 19th of March to win the approval of a cabinet before leading the transition up to the polls in December. In Myanmar, security forces have used tear gas and stun grenades to break up a protest in Yangon. It comes just hours after a UN envoy called on Security Council to take action against the military for the killings of protesters. Pro-democracy activists staged a protest in Myanmar's southern town of Dawi, chanting, "The revolution must prevail." Hundreds also gathered in Nepal's city of Kathmandu and Australia's Sydney to protest against the military coup in Myanmar. Meanwhile, Myanmar authorities have asked India to return 8 police officers who sought refuge to avoid military orders. The United Nations says more than 50 people have been killed in nationwide demonstrations since the first February coup. The Egyptian president has arrived in Sudan in a bid to break a diplomatic deadlock over a dam being built by Ethiopia. This is Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's first visit to Khartoum since the ouster of former Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir. In a statement, Egypt's presidency said Sisi will discuss Red Sea security and developments on Sudan's borders. Both Egypt and Sudan lie downstream from the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Ethiopia says it has every right to use the Nile waters long exploited by Egypt, but Sudan fears the dam could increase the risk of flooding and affect the safe operation of its own Nile dams. Similar concern was also raised by water-scarce Egypt, fearing its supplies from the Nile may be hit. Ivory Coast is voting in a legislative election with the incumbent president facing a combined challenge from opposition parties. The poll comes only months after Alassane Ouattara won the third term in an election marred by unrest that killed 85 people. The opposition is under pressure to show it remains relevant after years of political dominance by Ouattara. For the first time in 10 years, the Ivorian Popular Front head by the former President Laurent Gbagbo is participating in the polls. Ouattara came to power after defeating Gbagbo in the 2010 elections. The final results are due on Sunday. In Somalia, at least 20 people have been killed and 30 others wounded in a suicide car bomb blast in the capital city, Mogadishu. Officials say the operation is still going on to establish the exact number of casualties and the attack outside a restaurant. Meanwhile, local media said the blast was so strong that it caused massive material destruction and at least one building collapse. Police have blamed the attack on the Al-Shabaab terrorist group, but no one has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. At least 4 people have died in Senegal as protests to support arrested opposition leader Ousmane Sonko turned violent. Police clashed with protesters in front of the courthouse where Sonko made his first appearance since his arrest on a rape charge. Demonstrators also marched through the capital Dakar towards the presidential palace and ransacked government buildings. Interior Minister Anton has called the widespread protest an organized insurrection. Authorities have also restricted internet access and suspended broadcasting by 2 private television channels that covered the protests. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Brazil has recorded 1,800 more coronavirus-related deaths in the last 24 hours. The country's death toll has crossed 262,000 with more than 10.8 million infections. Globally, there are 2.57 million fatalities and 116 million infections.
The global fight against coronavirus seems like a roller coaster ride as achievements are hitting snags. Canada has approved Johnson & Johnson's vaccine, making it the 4th shot to be approved in the country. However, frustration grows over the slow start of inoculation drive. The U.S. is extending exclusions on tariffs for face masks, cleaning supplies and other personal protective equipment from China for 6 months. Meanwhile, Senate Democrats have resolved differences over unemployment aid in President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID-19 aid bill. The deal will enable the Senate to move forward with a sweeping package after hours of delay. And the World Health Organization has warned that countries could lurch into 3rd and 4th surges if curbs are hastily eased.
I really am very concerned that all of us, governments and individuals alike, think in some way psychologically, and I understand what's driving that, we think we're through this. We're not. And countries are going to lurch back into third and fourth surges if we're not careful.
The WHO also announced that the global COVAX program has delivered 20 million vaccine doses to 20 countries in the first week of distribution. Over in Europe, Czech Republic has asked Germany, Switzerland and Poland to take in its COVID-19 patients as hospitals overflow. Meanwhile, English authorities have tracked down a previously unidentified person who tested positive for the Brazil-linked variant.
We've now successfully identified the 6th case of the variant of concern first identified in Manaus in Brazil. Using the latest technology and with the dogged determination of our testing and tracing scheme, we've successfully identified the person in question.
Poland's cases of the British coronavirus variant are rising, with the B117 mutation now accounting for 15% of infections. And in Africa, Kenya has started vaccinations to help revive the battered tourism-dependent economy.
Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported 38 COVID-19 deaths overnight, with the toll rising to 13,166. In the past 24 hours, the Health Ministry recorded a further 1,714 infections. The ministry said the total number of infections has surpassed 588,000. It confirmed more than 558,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. Meanwhile, the number of active cases remains over 17,000. In France, Greenpeace activists protested at the Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris by painting an Air France plane green. They demonstrated on the tarmac to denounce what they call the government's greenwashing on air transport. Airport authorities said the activists were immediately intercepted and detained by the police. They said a probe will be carried out into the conditions of this intrusion, which constitute as an offense. Greenpeace France says that it, faced with the climate crisis, it is necessary to regulate and reduce air traffic. They have called for the abandonment of a dozen airport extension projects. In a statement, the NGO argued the recent proposals by France's transport minister will not be enough to tackle the climate crisis. The bills included a provision to prohibit internal flights when there is an alternative train journey of fewer than 2 hours. In Egypt, 18 people are killed and 5 others injured after a trailer truck crashed into a minibus south of the capital, Cairo. Officials say the crash took place near a town of Atfi, 100 kilometers south of Cairo. Police said the truck's tire exploded, causing it to overturn and collide with the bus. The driver has been arrested while the injured were taken to the hospital. Mexico's government has walled off the presidential palace ahead of a women's march. The rally is planned to protest violence against women and the president's support for a gubernatorial candidate accused of rape. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says those calling on him to drop support for Felix Salgado are politically motivated. Barriers were also installed around another emblematic buildings and monuments in downtown Mexico City. The protest is scheduled for Monday, commemorating International Women's Day on March 8th. According to official data, at least 939 women were victims of femicide last year in Mexico. Ecuador's Interior Minister Patricio Pazmiño has resigned after 4 prisoners' riots that left 79 people dead. The resignation comes less than a week after the National Assembly called for his removal. But Pazmiño called it a personal decision and also cited health reasons behind his resignation. Authorities said the riots were triggered by clashes between rival criminal gangs vying for power. The United States says hackers may have compromised a large number of victims by exploiting vulnerabilities in Microsoft software. The White House says there is currently an active threat from hackers exploiting 4 flaws in Microsoft's Exchange email application. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki warned the breach can have a far-reaching impact. Talking to reporters, Psaki said Washington is working with partners to understand the scope of the attack.
This is a significant vulnerability that could have far-reaching impacts. First and foremost, this is an active threat. And as the National Security Advisor tweeted last night, everyone running these servers, government, private sector, academia, needs to act now to patch them. We are concerned that there are a large number of victims and are working with our partners to understand the scope of this. So it's an ongoing process.
The American Space Agency, NASA's Perseverance rover, has undertaken its first drive across the surface of Mars. It moved for just 6.5 meters in total, but Deputy Project Scientist Katie Stack Morgan said it was a significant moment. The drive marks 2 weeks since the one-ton robot landed on the surface of the red planet. Engineers have spent this time commissioning the vehicle and its many systems, including its instruments and the robotic arm. Perseverance is on the mission to explore a near-equatorial crater called Jezero to search for evidence of past life. A Prague cafe, which first made the coronavirus-shaped cake in autumn last year, is now offering its treatment. More in this report.
The Black Madonna Cafe in Prague's historic center is now offering vaccines. But this is not the Pfizer, Oxford, or Moderna jab, but a strawberry banana-flavored dessert in the shape of a vaccine vial. Customers were charmed last year when the cafe began selling their virus cakes, and now patrons can follow up with treatment.
I bought both virus and vaccine. I've tasted the virus already and I liked it a lot. I also want to try the vaccine. I'm looking forward to it.
Good news for customers, this vaccine has no side effects, except maybe a satisfied tummy.
The Berlin Film Festival has wrapped up its annual awards ceremony. The winners were unveiled following a virtual industry event of 5 days. More in this report.
Filmmakers and artists were awarded for their creative storylines, film production skills, and acting performances. As the Berlin Film Festival revealed its 2021 awards in a virtual presentation. Among the prize winners was the Romanian director Radu Jude, who scored the top Golden Bear Award for a dark comedy depicting the everyday aggression experienced by a teacher in Bucharest. Bavarian director and screenwriter Maria Spat's touching documentary, Mr. Bachman and His Class, was crowned with the Silver Bear Jury Prize.
The film shows how far you can go simply with true respect, sincere communication, and with that magic all great teachers possess, sparkling the fire of passion in their students by activating their fantasy. The Silver Bear Jury Prize goes to Maria Spät for Herr Bachmann und seine Klasse.
German actress Maren Eggert won the Best Leading Performance honor for her role in I Am Your Man, while Hungary's debut filmmaker Dean Nagy took the Silver Bear for Best Director for the war movie Natural Light.
A narration that transcends its historical context, a portrait of war in which the observant gaze of the director reminds us again of the need to choose between passivity and taking individual responsibility. The Silver Bear for Best Director goes to Denis Nagy for Natural Light.
Festival organizers hope to show this year's films in cinemas at a live follow-up event in June, after the potential reopening of movie theaters.
In Mexico, the capital city has inaugurated its first cable car line to ease traffic woes. Officials say the cable bus will improve mobility in one of the world's busiest and biggest cities. This report has more.
For years, the city of 9 million people has been plagued by traffic jams. But thanks to cable bus, the metropolis will finally enjoy smoother travel and commute. Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum was full of praise after she inaugurated the first 2 stations.
This is a system, as you can see, which operates via cable, and it is for the areas with the greatest needs in this city. It's a world-class system for important people in Mexico City. It's a public transportation system which not only reduces transportation times, it is also a sustainable system which has low environmental impact. In addition, it is also a transportation system that has very high social content.
The cable bus system will have a length of 9.2 kilometers and 5 stations. Each air cabin has 10 seats and large windows for ventilation due to the coronavirus pandemic. At the moment, only 6 passengers who must all wear face masks will be allowed to board.
Very good and very comfortable. It will be useful for a lot of people who live here. For example, in my case, my son goes to school in this area, and earlier it was very hard for me to get back from the middle of the town.
The system was developed by the Austrian company Doppelmayr, which has built cable cars in 80 different countries. Locals are understandably excited for access to a smoother, faster, and cleaner mode of traveling.
It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.